Hi everyone, I must admit the title is sort of clickbait, but just because of the way I worded it, okay? Okay. I truly believe no one in Arcane is purely good, and that's what makes the show so perfect. Each character is heavily flawed and suffers from their own hubris, which is what brings the characters to life. There is no hero in this story similar to real life right now in America. Awkward. The government is mass firing people, cuts to healthcare that will cause millions to die, and the people who can help protest by wearing pink when they could be making effective change. Each person is trying to be a hero in this story, but putting their own well being first. This is such a human trait, and they integrated it so well into Arcane. I can't get over it. So that's why we have this video of me painting and rambling about Arcane. Here I'm painting Jinx from her meltdown after a character, spoiler, dies. So yeah, this video will definitely have spoilers. Arcane is about a corrupt government city called Piltover that dumps their waste and chemicals into the Undercity where the poor live. It unfortunately parallels life a little too well right now for my liking, but we are here to talk about the character writing. It is amazing how the characters started from fighting models in the game League of Legends. I've played League of Legends. Yeah, I don't know why I'm admitting that on the internet. League of Legends player. I stopped because people are so freaking mean on that game. And it's mainly guys who play it and yell at you. So yeah, I'm not a League of Legends player. If they play League of Legends, run! But somehow they made a show about it that's so amazing. From models and voice lines and music videos, and now they are fully fleshed out characters. So yeah, warning, I'm gonna get into more spoilers now. The music even encapsulates how no one is good and is such a huge part of the show. I listened to it on repeat. It has one of the best soundtracks. Man, it sounds like I'm sponsored by Arcane or Netflix. I swear to you, I'm not. I'm just that obsessed with the show and its animation. I tend to get obsessed with animated shows because animation is my special interest. If you didn't know, I am autistic, so I talk about animated stuff a lot. So this is nothing new for this channel. Anyway, before I went on that tangent, it plays a major part in the world building. My favorite is To Ashes and Blood, and that's actually the song I want to talk about. It has the children of Zon doing a literal traditional prayer song, praying for literal clean air. Man, that soundtrack is so good. Please listen to it. That's my favorite song on the soundtrack. And it has so much going on. It tells the story with like no words. It's really beautiful. The characters all want something, and they all think they are right in the way they go about things. This has actually led to a lot of people hating on characters intensely. The ones I see people hate on the most are Caitlyn and Mel, which is extremely unfair because a lot of the male characters act the same, but are not nearly as hated on as these two. I will admit these characters have their own flaws, but so does every character in the show because the flaws are what make them realistic, because to be real, you have to have flaws because no one is perfect. Quoting Hannah Montana, if you will. I want to go through some of the characters' wants and needs so you can understand my point. Jinx is seen as a hero by the Undercity. You see graffiti portraying her raising a flag for them, and the Undercity citizens even dress up like her. They dye their hair blue and get like painted on. On the other side, Piltover sees her as a terrorist, and the wanted posters make her look crazed and tired. Piltover sees her this way because she quite literally blew up a building, which injured and killed many of those in power. This was the right thing in her eyes because they had killed her parents and sickened her city since before she was born. If thought out thoroughly, she would have realized this would just make Piltover become even more angry than they already were for some reason. A hero like Captain America or Superman succeeds without offending while maintaining a job and is revered by everyone. Humans don't work like that, though. No one is loved universally. Nothing can be done without offending something or someone. Jinx was acting like a human without thinking after all the things Piltover had done to her and everyone she loved had betrayed her. It built up until it quite literally exploded because she exploded a building. You get it? Sorry, that was a lame joke and not funny. People see her as a hero and people see her as a villain, but she's neither. She is a girl trying to cope with mental illness caused by the inequality she was born into. She never planned to be a hero or a villain. She planned to take care of herself in the world that was built to bring the people of the Undercity down. A feeling all too familiar to minorities and a very human feeling that is not easily captured in writing that was very well done. Vander is a father figure for Powder, the person Jinx was before his death, and a father figure for her sister, Violet, also known as Vi. They are all coping with the death of the siblings' parents in different ways. It depicts all the different ways of grief because they all cope differently. Vander is overly protective to prevent more loss and projects these feelings onto Vi, even though she is just a child. Everyone in the Undercity has to grow up too fast. Powder was young and hardly remembers her parents. She overcompensates, needing to be needed to help some way since they're all drowning in their own way. This would lead to Powder's many downfalls and turn her into Jinx. Not many people talk about the grief aspect of this grief physically changing people. Even though she doesn't remember much, grief played a heavy part in this because she needed to be needed so badly. Vander's stubbornness to shield them from everything made them fight harder to help. This miscommunication led to his death and their friend's death, Milo and Clagger. Miscommunication is a common trope in media, but Arcane does it tastefully and not in an overdone way. When people think of the miscommunication trope, they usually think of dating relationships. However, miscommunication is far more common in family dynamics in real life and in politics. We don't see it a lot in media despite its constant reappearance in real life. Vi is similar in Vander's stubbornness to protect everyone so much, so she shoves Powder away. A common trait of an older sister, if you will. This leaves Powder alone with her grief, desperate to change the Undercity, and pushes her towards dangerous hobbies like her inventions. Vi is too busy providing for her small family and stealing from the rich to notice the change. That is until her invention to save them from Silco's feud with Vander gets Vander, Mindlow, and Clagger killed. Powder does all this so she can help, but still fails. In the beginning of the show, we see as a kid just trying to survive, but now her own sister sees her as a villain, a Jinx, when she was really just a kid. They are both kids just thinking irrationally, especially after all that death. Vi doesn't think of the consequences of leaving her sister, she just does out of anger. We don't often get to see kids acting like kids in shows, but Arcane does this very good, especially for kids dealing with inequality and war. Though an aspect of her character I did not like is later when she joined Caitlyn in fighting against Jinx because she thought Jinx was no longer herself. I just don't think it was character accurate to join the people that killed her parents in the past. So, yeah, but she was also in love with Caitlyn, so I don't know. You'll have to tell me your feelings about that in the comments. I'm not sure if I liked that. Silco in the beginning is seen as the villain of the show because of his feud with Vander. They feuded over how to solve the inequality crisis and the death of Jinx and Vi's mother. And they eventually just couldn't forgive each other. And soon you see Vi's and Jinx' relationship parallel. You can rewatch the show so many times and see a different parallel between their relationship. And oh my goodness, the thought that goes into this was so much. You can tell the story was animated and written with passion and love. Anyway, after Vi leaves Jinx alone, Silco sees himself in the tiny abandoned girl and takes her in. She learns Silco's views, adapts to them herself, even though Vander was so against them. Silco wanted to get Zahn under control and scare Piltover for violence. He was smart and strategic, had spies on the inside of Piltover through said violence. This makes the people of Piltover and Zahn fear him. Most people see him as a villain except Jinx. She sees his vision for change to help Zahn through violence. Silco is one of the most flawed characters out of the lot because of his anger towards the people of Piltover. However, this is a very natural anger, makes people seem scary, but it's what drives him for change, like many people in real life. His character is very complex. His character shift is beautifully done as he slowly puts Jinx before everything else. Zon, Piltover, he even puts her before his own anger. Yet he still cannot be truthful with his fatherly affection due to Vander's betrayal when Vander tried to drown him. He can't be truthful because he views it as weakness, and being seen as strong even outweighs Jinx. However, he still won't turn her over to Piltover, even though peace was promised if he did. Unfortunately, this conversation was overheard and misunderstood by Jinx, and she thought the only person she had left had betrayed her. If he had revealed his fatherly feelings, he could have prevented his death from Jinx's Manic episode. Also, if he had not isolated her and hid the truth of her sister being freaking alive. However, he did all this to protect Jinx, his fatal flaw, a human one that was accurately represented. Caitlin was born into wealth. Her mother even worked in the government. She was privileged, never knew what was going on in the Undercity, and never needed to know. Everyone thought the same in Piltover. The Undercity, also known as Zonites, were seen as vagrants and drug lords. The public didn't know they caused the sickness down there with the Grey, a substance that got filtered underground, that Piltover would weaponize to keep the Undercity sick and unable to do anything about it. Caitlin didn't know this, even though her mother was in the government and, in fact, knew about the Grey. She was raised with Piltover education. She wanted to be like her mother and help, and she thought the government helped people. This is a common motivation in real life to help by working for the government, but not knowing the full picture. Caitlin loses her mother in Jinx's attack and feels guilty because she could have stopped Jinx because she witnessed Jinx going to do it, but she was currently kidnapped by Jinx due to Jinx's Manic episode of finding out Vi was alive and with a guard and with a Piltover person, and she thought Silco was going to turn her in. Instead of learning the reasons behind the attack, she simply uses it to affirm her beliefs about the people of Zon. She is not a villain. She lost her mother and wasn't thinking rationally. She was educated as high society Piltover is, but of course education omits the part where your country is in the wrong because that makes you less loyal to your country. Caitlin is like a lot of people in real life, raised with a good education that makes you feel smart so you don't need to seek to understand others. Not to say she was in the right, she has flaws, and she is not a villain. She's a perfect example of a privileged human being who should have learned about others' struggles. Mel is a recent leader of Piltover, and is the definition of mommy issues. She isn't thinking of others, just how to get out from under her mom's control. She doesn't want to be defined by her last name or given privilege due to it. She is determined not to be like her mother, to avoid violence and to rule peacefully. Unfortunately for Mel, Piltover looked nice, but they had been using violence and poisoning the Undercity long before she came into power. She was determined to use peace, but how can you use peace when the rest of the government was fine with the way things were? A common predicament, everyone is against each other and everyone has something to prove. I'm honestly not sure why Mel gets so much hate as she does. She witnessed her mother kill someone and lost her brother at a young age. She wants to be kind, but was given a broken city by prejudice. People unsure how to make change with her mother still in the way. I'm still interested in her story more and her powers. Hopefully we learn more about her in the spinoff. Seeing her point of view in the show is helpful to see the corrupt government and how easy it is to be talked over. Next, we have Jace, a scientist who wants to use magic for good. People think he's mad, and he is kicked off due to the Board of Reviews. Even his own mother thought he was a little insane. Victor is the only one who doesn't think he is mad and saves him from losing his project. Mel likes his ideas using magic for peace for everyone. They are both idealists, but they are naive to think people won't use the Hex Core for violence. Jace loses himself in the power he started, naive, but then rose in the political circle and lost Victor to fame. Surprisingly, his core values never change, and I found that very interesting because it is not common to keep your values when you're losing yourself. He remained firm in his belief that the hex core should never be used for weapons. That was until Jinx's attack and Victor's near death. He would do anything to save Victor, so he lost everything. Jace is naive in every way, and would do anything to protect those he loved, and everyone knew it. He was the polar opposite of Silco. The characters in the show are all different, and it shows there are no pure good people, even if you try to be pure and good like Jace. There is no ethical way to live under capitalism, and that's how Piltover was run. Rich getting richer and the poor getting angrier. And he would only make this worse by bringing Victor back to life against his wills. Next, I'm going to talk about Echo, who is from the Undercity, and is the closest thing we have to being a hero as you can. Unfortunately, Piltover does not notice you unless you are violent. Echo is a Robin Hood, if you will, steals a small amount from Piltover and forms a community in the Undercity around the single tree that somehow survives the gray and the poisonous smog. He is peaceful in the way he goes about things, and Heimerdinger, Jace's previous mentor, even went down there due to his disapproval of using uncontrollable magic. He helps Echo, however the Undercity is still filled with violence and sickness, people who follow Silco's ways. No matter how good Echo was, he could not change with kindness, and people in the Undercity knew that. So he had people on all sides against him. Then the last thing left the tree was poison by the hex core. Taking too much magic tipped the balance of Earth itself. It would be more logical to talk about Victor after Jace, but I was saving it for last because he's my favorite and the most complex character, I think. So we are going to talk about Isha. She's from the Undercity and is a mirror image of who Jinx used to be, Powder. She's running from thugs when we meet her, and she still manages to capture our hearts, even though she doesn't say a single word in the show. Jinx was no longer herself, though, now. She was a mirror image of Silco. Through taking care of Isha, we see her put Isha first, no longer fighting for change, even though she is revered as a hero, and the Undercity won't even turn her into Piltover. They will fight for her. Jinx doesn't want to cause more harm. She just wants to take care of Isha. Will never view herself as a hero with all the death that follows her, and the visions that still plague her, or the hallucinations. Isha will, however, view her as the hero, the only one to make Piltover scared enough to come down here. Isha dyes her hair blue and helps lead the revolution by hiding on rooftops, just being seen, not saying a word. I would like to say she was a hero, but in reality, she was just a kid playing hero, putting real people in danger. She got imprisoned during the rally, even though she was just a child, a young small one at that. Yes, Jinx saved her, but she continued to risk her life for Jinx. Big spoiler, but it ends Isha's life, and ended Jinx's will to live as well, because everyone around her truly does die. And Jinx loses herself because of Isha, making Isha not a hero, but just a child in a war zone. Lastly, we have Victor, my very favorite character, a perfect representation of what it's like to be a disabled person, and his scenes are so good, they always make me cry. Victor is originally from the Undercity, his disability most likely caused by the poisonous air in the Undercity. He was one of the rare ones who made it out purely because of his intelligence. He studied under a mad scientist in Zahn, the scientist who was previously from Piltover but was sent to the Undercity for his wild ideas due to drugs and morality and mortality. The knowledge he received allowed him to work in Piltover and save Jace from being fired from working with magic. Together they became lab partners. Yes, Victor was focused on a better world and stopping the children from the Undercity dying and becoming disabled like he did. But his priorities never lied exactly there. He had ulterior motives. He was dying and he wanted a cure. He was disabled since childhood and used a cane. He was obsessed with a cure, even if he died trying. And it was all he was focused on. The most beautiful scene was when he was running using the hex core. He runs faster than a boat, and it paralyzed his childhood, when he couldn't even keep up with the boat. A toy one at that. I sobbed at this scene, I have to admit. To be able to run like that seems so freeing. A lot of people make fun of Victor's screams at this scene, but I don't think you can fully understand that scene unless you are disabled. It was a guttural scream of freedom from being trapped in your own body, and it was a pure release. Heimerdinger warned them to not mess with magic, their previous mentor. He said magic always comes with a price. The price was their lab assistant, Sky. The hex core disintegrated her, and Victor no longer wanted to cure himself. He lost the choice during Jinx's attack when Jace brought him back to life with hex core. Victor was no longer himself, but a man who wanted to cure everyone of everything, even emotion. He certainly was no hero, but he saw himself as one by curing those he rid of their humanity. But he viewed humanity itself as sickness. With no emotions meant no more war, no more gray, no more people would become sick. With no humanity, there was no life, though. The world would be empty. Jace eventually says to him, by going into this, astral realm and finding him again. It was very complicated, not gonna lie. But anyway, Jace says, you've always wanted to cure what you thought were weakness, your leg, your disease, but you were never broken, Victor. There is beauty in imperfection. They made you who you are, an inseparable piece of everything I admired about you. I'm gonna sob again just reading that quote. Typically, I don't like shows where the disabled character is cured magically, but this show is different. It showed it was a piece of him, and with his disease gone, he was no longer him. Jace stopped him from taking over the world, and they became a part of the universe together. And I think that was a perfect ending for them. Though it will be hard to rebuild Piltover and Zon without them, the majority of both citizens passed when Mel's mother got involved and started her own war over Hex Tech because she wanted power. But with the majority gone, I think the city is safe in Mel's hands. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed me rambling about Arcane, and most importantly, everyone, stay weird. Bye.